Hi everyone, it's Grant Abbott speaking and welcome to this initial session that I thought was very apt to look at in terms of the coronavirus. There's a lot of confusion, I think a lot of concern going around, obviously a lot of panic buying, and we really don't know where we're going to. I mean, the smart people say, look, it might be 3 or 4 weeks or 5 weeks and things won't get back to normal. They will change and there will be a slowdown. But then we have Morrison, who came on this morning and said that, look, we're in for 6 months of this, which means everyone, and the good thing about this, I was talking to someone this morning, that it's not just us, it's everyone around the world is impacted on this, and the governments are throwing lots and lots of money at it. But with all due respect, once governments get involved, by the time the money comes through, we'll probably be on to the next virus. You know, it's going to have bureaucracy, so on and so forth. I thought the old cash splash of Kevin Rudd years ago, was it the $750 or whatever dollars or $950 it came out, that moved pretty quickly, but I'm not sure that it did all that well. Most people used it for LCDs, but I think they're a lot more focused these days because it started off as a health crisis and then moved into the broader scheme of things, into the finance, and the markets certainly are up and down. So I've got a few issues we're going to look at today. But who would ever thought that a virus which started in Wuhan in China could spread so quickly throughout the world? Obviously, it looks as though the CCP were aware of it for 2 or 3 months. In fact, I think they jailed the first whistleblower over there who spread the word on it, and that allowed it to go out into the broader community in Wuhan, which is obviously many millions of people. The problem about that, though, is by the time the CCP came out and fessed up to it, it was right in the middle of their Chinese New Year. So 5 million people from Wuhan had spread throughout the world to go back and see their family and friends. And so suddenly we've got a huge spread, and you can see it obviously impacted Hong Kong to a lesser extent, South Korea, obviously Italy, which has very close ties to China, and it's now really spread to the rest of the world. So that because it's a new virus and it's got an extremely high contagion rate, it's basically everyone's starting to quarantine. And I suppose the Chinese actually came out with that measure, and they quarantined huge amounts of provinces. At one stage, there was 700 million people who were in a lockdown mode, which is unfathomable for us poor little people here in Australia. We're certainly blessed with great borders, and no doubt the government is going to go through the process of locking down those borders. I heard an announcement today that effectively Australians are warned or being prevented from travelling overseas, that a lot of the impact has been from people coming back from overseas. So, but that means that if we're quarantining, we're putting people into isolation. One area there is they're not impacting the schools, which means things are still running. But obviously businesses are going to be severely impacted, except obviously deliveries and so on and so forth. So it seems as though Australia is not in that bad a position at the moment, but it's a day-by-day situation. The government is throwing a lot of money at it. But this is very initial times. I mean, who would have thought this a month ago? If it was, we would have all shorted the ASX and we certainly all moved our money to cash or whatever. So no one really picked up that it would spread far and wide to Australia, but we should have really. I mean, look at what happened in China, and then cases started to pick up elsewhere. And with global travel, etc., obviously there's going to be a big impact. Now, a lot of small businesses are going to have severe, or not only will they, but they have severe cash flow problems at the moment. If you go to, well, you don't even go to malls at the moment. So those retail industries and also their staff, their suppliers, are all going to be in a pretty significant problem. The cash is going to run out. And as I said, there's up here in Queensland, $500 million is being promoted to small business owners to obviously pay for wages for up to $250,000 on a loan, which is interest-free for a year. But again, we have to move really quickly, and people need to get on top of that and say, okay, well, how's that going to be delivered? And look, I'm not a, I know what red tape's like, and look, who's going to see what happens? But look, we're all in it together, which is fantastic, and there is a light at the end of the tunnel. The main thing is accountants and financial planners and advisors. We've got to keep our heads on our shoulders and go through and know that at some point in time, this is going to end and that effectively will get under control. Like if someone came up with a solution, I saw there was a Brisbane researcher who said he's had great impact with chloroquine, which is a treatment for malaria, which is another viral treatment, that by using that, it's had a big impact, and they're rushing to studies there. But if there was suddenly an easy solution like that, then, the whole thing will die away. We're going to be back and probably breathing a sigh of relief that it's over. But at the end of the day, everything's changed really, is that once this happens, there's always going to be concern what's going to happen if there's another virus that comes down the track. But look, that's not me. That's just me just supposing stuff. And look, we can all look with hindsight. We would have been very rich people, but even the richest people like the Tom Hanks and all that, they've got it, but they've all recovered from it. And really the average age you see of deaths is quite high. So I've got my mum and dad in a nursing home in Adelaide, and I fully expect that to be locked down for 2 or 3 months because they're the vulnerable people. Now, what I did is I thought I'd turn my mind, and I've done sessions like this over the time for many years, but I've never really done a deep dive in how to access superannuation to any great extent. Mainly from that perspective is that everything's been fine, dandy, rosy and all of that. We've had a couple of things now when everything starts to get slammed. We need to go and start to look at maybe what are the key parameters of accessing our super for our clients. So I want to go through some of the strategies I've used in past for clients or advisors' clients, show you how they work, when they can work. And I'm going to come up with a couple of suggestions, which I'm going to use a bit of a bazooka on a little later on, just waiting for times to go on. But here's the deal, is that at the moment, there was, as at March, or in fact, I think it was 31 December, there was $2.2 trillion in superannuation assets, with more than $700 billion in fixed interest in cash. Now, I want to take you through to the stats on that so we can have a look. I've got a really good grounding on this one. Now, this is a valuable resource to boost a family's safety net, and it can be unlocked now, depending on the type of fund. Now, for SMSFs, we can start to move straight away for our clients. But if you're in a government-defined benefits superannuation fund, the worst ones are the polys, where it's paid straight out of consolidated revenue, although I expect they'll probably pay themselves okay. They're going to be the worst. But really, at the end of the day, how did that money get into super? It's been effectively a salary sacrifice of 9% or 9.5%, whatever it is, 9.25%, up into this present point in time. So it is actually the Australians' cash, but it is being used for retirement, or there are special circumstances where we can access it straight away. Now, I'm not going to say this, but if we were permanently disabled, we'll be able to access that money straight away. The other one I want to show you, really will go through, and I'm going to go through my 7 strategies. If they were temporarily incapacitated, so if I was on quarantine as a small business, so I'm on lockdown and I'm outside, I can't go to work, then I can access my profits, business profits, or what were my business profits before the lockdown. Or if I was in employment, salary and wages, I can access that virtually straight away. It has to be in a certain form and format, But effectively, for your clients, you'll be able to do that straight away. So I need to, of course, we need to get a diagnosis, not a diagnosis of got coronavirus, the fact that they've even got a flu and they're off work can cover that. So I want to show you that sort of ability, but for that I'm going to have to go into the legislation. So let's go and have a look at the 7 strategies. In fact, I've got probably about 8 or 9, so I keep on digging them up. But let's go through this. Ask any questions along the way. I will be going deep diving into the legislation. So the reason I'm doing that is to show you that, look, if people say it can't be done, it gives you the ability, particularly if you're dealing with an auditor, to get them to look at this video and, more importantly, show them the specific section where it's allowed. But let's go through that. So as I said before, temporary incapacity. What is it and what does the trustee pay? So this is a trustee issue. You don't have to go to the tax office for this. So this is my favourite. Financial hardship, we can go in and have a look at that one, what's required. That may come down a little bit later on down the track. Again, I don't know. Look, it'd be great to say, being a Pollyanna, that everything's going to be rolled over and fixed in 4 weeks and the government's going to do a great job, but I don't know. I think we might be in this for a few months yet. So, and look, I'm going to continue to pump out these webinars, etc., to make sure that if you're working from home, at least you've got an ability to listen to me. I'm not sure if that's good or bad, but look, there's some good information that's coming through. Compassionate grounds. Look, this is a good one. You're actually I'm going to show you how to get 3 months mortgage payments, 12 months interest payments, and potentially council rates. And that's from all funds, not only SMSF, but super. I've just gone through this process, so I have to work it through with you. TRIS, I worked on one this morning. For someone, obviously, they've reached their preservation age, which we'll have a look at. But they can take 10% out, obviously. But I want to show you how to take out 10, 20, 30. Again, this is the money. It's nice to say it's all for retirement, but God, with these viruses, how do we know everything? Look, I don't want to be a harbinger of doom, but I'd rather bring it forward than way later, a bit later on. Loans by an SMSF to a family trust or company by older members like grandparents or parents, as long as it's commercial, look at that. Investments by an SMSF in a company business structures, such as business owners and staff, I want to look at that. I'm going to go and have a look at the definition of retirement as well while we go through. And I've got a petition coming up, so I haven't published it yet, but effectively you can see all those cash hoards that at some point in time, depending on what's going on, but if things get really crunchy, that there should be, and I'll show you where we can actually make the changes quite easily, that effectively that individuals will be able to get an income stream from their superannuation fund, retail industry, and obviously SMSFs, and can take between obviously the minimum of 4% and maximum of 10%. So it's like a TRIS, but I'm going to call it a coronavirus TRIS. So we'll have a look at that. Let's go in anyway. I'll jump out of here and start to go through the legislation. So a couple of things I've got up here. I've got where did I have it? I think I've got it here. No, it's the publish. Okay, so here are the quarterly stats from APRA, as you can see up here. When I go up, they don't really focus in on self-managed super funds. So these are the figures December 2019. So they've just been released only a little while ago. I'll try and blow it up so you can just see it a little bit better. There you go. That's much better. As is normal, this will be recorded and be up and available on the Light Year, in fact, I Love SMSF site later on today. So we go down here, we look at contributions, benefits and all that, and isn't it funny how actually I'll leave I'm going to be a bit nasty in a second. Financial performance, the annual industry-wide rate of return for entities with more than 4 members for the year was 13.8%. The 5-year average analysed annual return ROR to December 2019 was 7.1%. So everyone's really happy. I remember doing a talk. Do you remember that, Sebastian? We did a talk to a lot of your clients who were at SMSFs, and it was ongoing SMSF, and He was saying, why should I be in a self-managed superannuation fund? Because a lot of my friends have got $1 million plus in industry funds, and they seem to be doing spectacularly well. And I'm looking at closing my SMSF and moving to an industry fund. Well, I can tell you what that $1.1 million balance would be, because we can look here. Over the December 2019 quarter, total assets increased by 1.7% to $2.2 trillion. So we're in a pretty good position. Now, this is, I think this is just for 4 members or less, so it's not SMSFs. So if you add SMSFs on the top, which is another 750 billion. Now, as of the quarter, 51% of the 1.9 trillion investments were invested in equities, with 25% in international, primarily, obviously over the US, 22% in Australian listed equities. So you can imagine, these are mainly industry and retail funds. Can you imagine what a hammering they've got on that? They're down like 40%. Now, you don't see them out. Have you heard from them the last couple of weeks on any of their commercials about doing how well they are? In fact, I know a few people have gone in and called their superannuation funds and then found out that suddenly there's been huge drops in their balances, and then effectively it's, oh my God, I thought it was all in cash. And this just shows you they've had pretty heavy exposure to equities. Now, it's not too bad, because it's 50-50, because they've even got fixed income of and cash of 30.9, so 21.3 fixed income, 9.5. Property infrastructure is 14.3. So they're basically all the the breadth of it. But they would have been smashed quite considerably, which is good for SMSFs, because I can tell you over the next couple of years, when people see their balances go down, they're actually going to say, particularly the next generation, they'll say, well, why would I keep on with you guys when I can do it myself? And typically what happens in this regard anyway is that the current state we're going through is psychologically is much the same as a divorce or a breakup of a business partnership, is that at the moment we're going through a whole lot of confusion. We really don't know what's going on. We're living day by day. It's as if your wife or your husband's left you. It's like, well, what am I going to do? How am I going to manage? What's going to happen to finances? Will it be okay in the long run? Which it will in the long run anyway. But there's going to be a lot of pain in the meantime for readjustments. Then we go through the next stage, which is going to be grief. And I think that'll happen maybe in 4 or 5 weeks, unless there's a huge rebound, that the grief, or they find some amazing cure. The grief will be that people start to lose their jobs, business will go out, and hopefully that's not the case if we're coming with our solutions. And then after that is the anger. And I can tell you there'll be a lot of anger at the Chinese for all of this sort of stuff, but there'll also be a lot of anger at industry funds as well. So much the same as it was in 2000 and also 2007. So from that perspective is, in our sector, if we're in SMSFs, we're actually in a good position, believe it or not. And we will do well on the track. Okay, so what I'm doing now, if you can see, I'm jumping into the CIS regulations, and I'll just open it up. So these are the payment standards, as you can see. So the payment standards are when I can access my money. For that, there's 2 parts. There's the first part I've got here is the regulations. The second part is, I'm in part 2. So part 1 of part 2 of the CIS regs, sorry about that, this is the guidelines around regulated super funds. So for example, here's the first one, which is an easy one. So on retirement, there's a nil cashing restriction, which means that effectively I can take my monies as a lump sum or an income stream. Does everyone follow me on that one? Now, for the definition of retirement, I'll just squeeze all this a little bit down. So I'm looking at 6.017, which should be up here. Okay, so can everyone see that? So 6.017, for the purpose of Schedule 1, which is, remember, this is what we just had a look at that one. The retirement of a person is taken to occur in the case of a person who's reached a preservation age that's less than 60 So at the moment is, I think when we have a look at it, is going to be age 58. If an arrangement on which the member's gainful employed has come to an end and the trustee is reasonably satisfied that the person intends never to again become gainfully employed either on a full-time or part-time basis. So if someone's that age, they put their hands up and say, that's it, I'm giving up, I'm retiring, then effectively they need to notify the trustee of the fund that effectively they've retired, and then they can access their super. The second one here is in the case of a person who has attained the age of 60 for a client, and an arrangement under which the member is gainfully employed has come to an end, and either following circumstances apply. The person attained that age on or before the ending of the employment, or they're never going to be working again. So if you've got a client who's age 60, they're still working, but if they actually stop work or they've got a corporate trustee company or a director of, as long as they get some sort of recompense or a super or whatever, and they stop that role post age 60, then they are deemed to be retired, even though they're going to work full time. So this is really good for doctors, dentists, professionals who are still working full time, but if they're working as a VMO at a visiting medical officer at a hospital, if they just stop that for a short period of time, they might come back a little bit later on, then effectively they're going to be retired, they're going to have full access to the super. Now, wouldn't that be nice? Now, wouldn't that even be better if they wrote in there subsection C, for coronavirus, we are allowing people to be deemed to be retired for blah, blah, blah. Now, that's not going to happen because they don't want to obviously have such a huge amount of leakage. So I really got a good question here. Oh, gosh. Did you see the Super SA, which is Jana Asset Consultants, Jana Asset Consultants, increase exposure to growth assets by 5% at 7,000 on the ASX index? I told you, the first port of call when we come around this, it's going to be huge amount of anger at the Chinese, and the next one is then going to be at the industry funds. So this isn't one of my 7, but I just thought I'd put it in there for you anyway, because it's retirement condition of release. Again, once you've got a client over age 60, bang, get them stopping working somewhere, and then they've got full access to the super. That is the best. Death and terminal medical conditions. Let's not hope that your clients get there, but no. Permanent incapacity, look, that's more you've virtually got to get a couple of doctors signing off that you're never able to be in work again. So that's not going to work for us. If I go down here, so I've got ones here, and I'll go through and we'll focus in on them a little bit later. I'm going to wheel back. So the first one I want to do is have a look at temporary incapacity. So this is compassionate ground, which I'll look at. I'm going to look at financial hardship. I'll come back on that one as well. And then I've got temporary incapacity. So this is really important. It might be a hard one for retail funds and industry funds because if it's not written into the deed, it's not written to the deed, so they can't do it. But it's worthwhile investigating. So temporary incapacity, I need to bounce out of here, and then I need to go through the defs, the definitions. Oops, sorry, I've gone too far. Let me just go up. So I want to go through the definitions of what temporary incapacity is. And this is really crucial because if we make this, and this is a trustee by trustee determination, I don't need to go to the ATO. Again, if there's an issue with the auditor, they're not going to know for a while anyway, but importantly, can direct them this. So temporary incapacity in relation to a member who's ceased to be gainfully employed, so that means they've stopped work. Now, this is interesting. Look at the next section, including a member who has ceased temporarily to receive any gain or reward under a continuing arrangement for the member to be gainfully employed means ill health, whether physical or mental. So, for example, if someone is quarantined, it might be difficult if they can't show ill health. But if they show they've got flu-like symptoms or they've got anxiety and they go to a doctor and get a certificate for that, then bang, you're right in the middle of this. And the fact that you're off work or your business is closed down from that, then you're temporarily incapacitated. So then it goes into the cause a member to cease to be gainfully employed. And gainfully employed, I'll have to take us through. I think I've got it here, or it might be up in. I don't think it's here. I think it's actually in Regulation 1. Effectively, gainfully employed is self-employed or working for anyone, but most of you should for reward. So temporary incapacity is a good one. Now, what I have to do is go here back to my payment standards. So temporary incapacity means a non-commutable income stream. So read there, salary. Is everyone following? So it's a salary or salary-like. I'm going to look at individuals and wages and salary, and then I'm going to look at business owners. Cashed from the regulated super fund for the purpose of continuing in whole or part the gain or reward which the member was receiving before the temporary incapacity. So if I get the coronavirus, and look, the way it happens is even if it only goes on for 3 or 4 weeks, I can claim on my fund for that 3 or 4 weeks. So it's continuing the gain or reward, and it has to be for a period not exceeding the period of incapacity from employment of the kind engaged in immediately before the temporary incapacity. So effectively, as long as I don't go back to work, and I can show that I've got that incapacity, because it might go from coronavirus then to anxiety or whatever, then at that stage, that temporary incapacity can go up to age 65 for the actual aspects from there. So I have to go in now and then look at what is a non-commutable income stream. So if I go there and have a look at what a non-commutable income stream is, then if I go in, sorry, I've just got another question here. Okay, so that was a genuine one. So thank you very much for that. What I'm going to do here is a non-commutable income stream. I'll just bounce up here a little bit so we know what it is. It's not that difficult. Non-commutable income stream means a benefit that it cannot be commuted, is paid at least monthly, does not have residual capital value, so there's no capital payment at the end, and the total amount paid each month is fixed or varies only for CPI. Let's face it, CPI is going to be virtually nothing for the foreseeable future. So what we've got there is we can pay, it's effectively a salary continuance benefit, and it's paid directly out of our superannuation fund. So if we look at that, that's a really good position for us for that. So that's a good one that is available now. If you can meet that temporary incapacity, just keep it. You just got to make sure that you meet that. The key things you've got to do is meet that criteria. You're not able to get a gain or reward. Now, obviously, if they're still getting sickness benefits from the employer, then you can't top that out unless it is a lesser amount than they were receiving. For small business owners, if they don't get paid sick leave, then this is obviously where it will fit in. For sole traders, it can actually be, if they close their business because of their sickness, it's going to be what they were receiving before by way of profits, as opposed to gain or reward. All we have to do is show what that amount is. That gain or reward is essentially that. So that's the first one we looked at. Let's go down and have a look at financial hardship, so severe financial hardship. So for a person taken to be in severe financial hardship under paragraph 6.015A, which I'm going to look at, so let me just wheel to that one. So 6.01, that's 15A, 6.015A, 6.015A. So financial hardship. Okay, here we go. Okay, so 6.015A is, I've just got a couple of questions coming through. Currently, some of the insurers, AIA and TAL, are receiving more new 14-day wait IP policy applications than the other policy at the moment. So that's a really good question. So while there's a 14-day wait, your temporary incapacity can actually fill that 14 days. Does that make sense? So you don't have to wait from for your own SMSF. Trustees of retail and industry funds, look, I just think this is a bit too hard for them, but it's worthwhile trying. I'd have a go. But as soon as you get the doctor's certificate, you fall straight in if it's an SMSF. Paul, doesn't this require reserves or insurance to access that? No, not at all. You can access that from your superannuation straight away from your accumulation balance. So you don't need to have insurance from that one. Now, financial hardship is the trustee of superannuation satisfied based on written evidence provided by at least one Commonwealth department or agency responsible for, actually just going back to Paul, any amount that is your SGC generally can't be, that has to be held over for retirement. So that can't be used for your temporary incapacity, but any earnings on that or non-concessional, they effectively can be used. So the trustee of your superannuation is satisfied based on written evidence provided by at least one Commonwealth agency responsible for administering a class of income support payments that the persons receive Commonwealth income support payments for a continuous period of 26 weeks, and they're in a receipt, and the person is unable to meet reasonable and immediate family living expenses. So just on this one, this is a bit of a long-term one, but put it in the back of your mind, because essentially, if your clients do go on income support, or the government does provide some form of income support, depending on what nature it is, then effectively we've got a scenario there that we can be in a position of accessing our financial hardship. Now, what is a financial hardship? For a person with severe financial hardship, in each 12-month period, beginning on the date of the first payment, a single lump sum not less than $1,000, except if the amount's preserved benefits is less than that amount, and not more than $10,000. So effectively, there's a cap on $10,000, but again, I would have thought a lot of people, $10,000 is useful. This is really the nuclear option if we end up a client being on benefits. And it's not a bad idea if they're off their wages to go on benefits ASAP. So the 26 weeks is half a year. So we're looking at probably, around about October. If you've reached a person's preservation age plus 39 weeks, the trustee is satisfied. If you've got 39 weeks after your preservation age, then you can access all your super, provided you're on Commonwealth income support payments. So that's not a bad one to have a look at from that perspective. But if you already reached a preservation age, let's face it, remember, going back to our element here, if we've already reached our preservation age, we're not going to work again, then we're retired. So we can access it all. We don't need to worry about that one. So that's the financial hardship, $10,000, but you need to show you've got 26 weeks of income support payments. Now let's go to compassionate grounds. So the regulation is the regulator. So what we need to do is go to the tax office, has determined under sub-regulation 619(2)(a)(2) that a specified amount of benefits in the regulated super fund may be released on compassionate grounds. Now, this is a little bit harder going down the track. So it's a single lump sum not exceeding an amount determined in writing by the regulator. Now, a lot of people have been using this one for boob jobs. But anyway, I don't know how that works, but we've got to get it past the tax office. Being an amount that, taking account of the ground and the person's financial capacity is reasonably required. So the first one is, I'll have a look at this one. So I'm going to bounce out of that, and I'm going to look at 619(a)(2). So there's two elements here. So I'll just jump down to 619(a)(2) and show 616. Okay, so the first one is that a person may apply to the tax office for a determination that an amount of the person's preserved benefits or restricted benefits in a superannuation entity may be released on the grounds required to pay for medical treatment or medical transport for a person or a dependent. So this includes kids, anyone else who's financially dependent on you. I'll come back and have a look at B, so that's foreclosure. C, to modify a person's place of residence. Well, that's not really the case, but it's good to know that you can access your super to modify for care. Palliative care, let's hope that's not the case for your clients. And to pay for expenses associated with a dependent's palliative care, death, funeral, or burial. So that may be for your parents, if that's the case, if they have, or grandparents that happen to be in the home and you were looking after them from a dependent point of view. Now, dependent includes all children. Obviously, you don't have to be financially dependent. So that's the first one, and you get a lump sum for whatever it is. So obviously, you need to work out the payments, and then with a doctor, particularly this first one, as I said before, go and have a look at financial grounds, and you'll see that there's a lot around boob jobs, lots of doctors talking around this. So again, medical treatment for that. Now, when we go down to the regulator must determine in writing that the person is satisfied for the purpose of the 618 and 619 conditional release on compassionate ground that the regulator is satisfied the release is required on ground mentioned in sub-regulation 1, and the person does not have financial capacity to meet expense arising from that ground. The regulator cannot be satisfied that money is required for medical treatment unless two registered medical practitioners certified the medical treatment is necessary to treat a life-threatening illness or injury, alleviate acute or chronic pain, or alleviate an acute, chronic, or mental disturbance. And the treatment is not readily available to the person or dependent through the public health system. So again, if we have a look at that, I'm not sure where the underlying coronavirus fits in, but it's good just to know down the back of your mind that if everything goes to hell, that you can access your super. Remember, this is a preserved amount, but you've got to go to regulator. But I can imagine the tax office is going to be smashed for all of these ones as well. So we just have to be really careful about that. Paul, very well, about the minimum benefits, as I said, SGC, but he's got reserves. If you've got reserves, you're in a sweet position for that temporary incapacity. So good on you, Paul, for thinking about that one. I might have known you like super brainy anyway. Let's go down and have a look. So we've got this second one, and I've used this recently. B. So let me just de-highlight all of that. So that's okay. So B, to enable the person to make a payment on a loan to prevent foreclosure of a mortgage on the person's principal place of residence. So this is going to be important, or exercised by the mortgagee of an express or statutory power of a sale. So if looks as though there's going to be a foreclosure, and that may well be the case if the banks, it depends. The banks are probably going to be pretty resilient, hopefully. So fingers crossed, but we never know with the Australian banks. That in that instance, what we're going to do is we can go and get some monies down there from that perspective. So I'll go back to the regs, and it says the compassionate ground. So the amount we can get, in the case of the ground mentioned in paragraph 619A1B, in each 12-month period beginning on the date of the first payment, does not exceed an amount equal to the sum of 3 months repayments and 12 months interest on the outstanding balance of the loan. So that if we do look at foreclosure, the process is, and I need to go back here because there was a process that I had to go through. So 5, the regulator cannot be satisfied the money is required on the ground mentioned in paragraph 1B unless the person gives the regulator a written statement from the bank that the payment of an amount is overdue, and if the person fails to pay the amount, the mortgagee will foreclose the mortgage on the person's principal place of residence or exercise express or statutory power of sale. So, for that, it also needs to have the 3 months repayment and the 12 months interest. So what it does is then you've got to specify preserved and so on and so forth. So that's not a bad one to put in. Again, let's hope we get out of it. But these are the things that we need at our best case. Temporary incapacity, I love that, the best by far. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to look at SMSF loans. I've just got a couple of questions. I'll do that. Is the principal place of definition the tax definition? So really good, Selma. Again, good to see you guys over in Perth awake. No, it's not. It doesn't have the principal place of residence. This is the CIS Act. So I'm assuming that it's going to be a lot less, it's going to be a lot more flexible around that. So it could be, you've got here a property you've chosen to be your PPO and you say you're actually renting where you currently live. It may be that, look, as long as there's a mortgage on that, you should be pretty well right on that one. But again, just have a look at that. Poke at me if you want. I'll just take us here up to our site. So I'm just looking at light year docs. Another one that we had here is if you've got any issues at any point in time, just feel free to contact us. You'll see we've got, I'll just go in and I'm going to do an SMSF loan. So this might be grandparents or it might be parents or whatever. We're going to do an SMSF loan agreement. So I'm on a full freight, which means I've got unlimited documents. If you've got issues, particularly around that Selma, you've got a specific issue, put your name, address. I've got a client who's got this. Is it a PPR for the compassionate grounds or the financial hardship, and send it in to me. Now I'm going to start the document. I'll put this in as the Abbott-Family. So I'll put it in as set it up. So I'm going to start there. So what I'm doing now is, and this is crucial for all of your clients, so I'm actually taking money out of my self-managed super fund. Don't try this with a retail fund. They're going to laugh your head off. Because remember, here's a good idea, seriously. Because if I could get a loan from a retail super fund of all my benefits, the 5% rule doesn't apply, because obviously there's not, the in-house assets rule doesn't apply to anything there. So it'd be great if the retail industry funds would lend my superannuation to me, but obviously they'd probably argue, well, they're not going to do that anyway. They'd probably argue it's against the sole purpose test. So I'm going to put grants trust loan so I can find it. I'm going to put my logo on, so that's AM001. I've got the lender. So the lender is going to be the Abbott-Family Super Fund number 2. Is the trustee a company? Yes. So the company is SMSF Angels. Oops, sorry. That's all I need to put in, because effectively you'll see the PTY limit is applicable. So 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5. So I go down, put my address in, and I'll just put a dummy address if you don't mind. Smith Street. I'm living up in beautiful Twin Waters. We've got next week, if you guys are around, I'm doing a 2-day course. It's actually gone virtual now, and that's on succession, asset protection, SMSF strategies and estate planning, which will be pretty exciting. So if you've got a couple of days off, but you'd like that a recording, make sure you come in. It's got 11 CPD points, which is pretty good. So the borrowing can't be me. So I can't lend to my daughter. I can't lend to myself. Good idea when you're using a system. Save the answers along the way. So when we have a look at that, I can do a company. So this could be a company, or I could do my family trust. So I'm going to lend to the company, the Abbott-Family Trust. Now the trustee is I'll just make it individual just to make it, I think you guys understand what's going on here anyway. Grant Abbott, street line address. Now I can select, because I've already got that in the system, so I just select, you can see up will come Smith Street. So that's me lending to from my super fund to my trust, but I can be a trust or a company, so that's okay there. I'll go down to the next, which now is the T's and C's. When's the agreement? Client comes in, we want it tomorrow. And this is how fast it can happen. I could do fixed interest, date of commencement of the loan. When's that going to happen? Tomorrow, because they need the money there. Queensland, principal loan amount. Now this is going to depend. So remember, if your parents have got a large fund, or they want to lend to the kids, rather than having to take the money out of super, they can actually do a loan agreement. Not to the kids, it has to go to a family trust or family companies. And I have people set up family trusts for that regard anyway. So it'll be lent. So what we need to do is, let's say we've got a $1 million fund, then it can be $50,000, which really should get through people for a long time. The term of the loan, we have to be commercial. So let's just choose 7 years. The interest rate, just look at the typical lending rate, particularly if I've got a home. So I don't know what the current rates are. Let's say about 3.9%, whatever a bank would lend. So this is like an overdraft. Interest payable, I would probably go just quarterly and then work out your amount. So it's $50,000 over a 7-year period at 3.9%. But we could probably make that 15 years if we needed to. If we're going to go for security, we do that. So it might end up like, who knows? You guys are a lot quicker than me. Let's say $300 per month is the repayment. Now, I'd always go the mortgage. The mortgage deed would be the same. So this is just encapsulating the same thing. Put in the real estate. So if they've already got a property there, put in your folio number L510897. And then, I wonder if I've got, no, I just put in 5 Smith Street, Twin Waters. Then that would be Queensland, and that would be 4564. So there, effectively, I've done that. I've finished now, so that takes me through, and then I save all the answers. You can see at any time if you want to do a document preview, and you can see I've got it all there. But what I'm going to do is, because I'm unlimited, this is $99, this doc, but gosh, the worth it is to the client. You've got to go back to the interview. I'm going to finish. And then it will pop the document, which is a PDF. So with that, now I'll go back. So I'll just show you. I'm not going to get it up because you can always go back in and you go back into the vault. I think I did that one, which was, I know, the Abbott-Family. So just to remember, I've got to clear this up. There's so much rubbish in here. So sorry about that. There we go, the Abbott-Family. And you'll see that that document is here. Remember, I just did that. I go in, see the little rocket ship. That's a relaunch. Now, I've gone in and we've had a look at our balance and in our superannuation fund. And then what we do is we go through and find, okay, oh my God, the account's gone down, so I can only lend 40,000. So that ends up being, let's say, $250 a month. So I go through and then I just go to finish, and that will then shoot up a brand new document for me. So I could show you the two, but I'll just show you the latter one there. A couple of things is that if you have a mortgage, because that will be treated as a loan or fixed interest in the investment strategy, which you need to make sure you do an investment strategy with this. If the rest of the assets go down so it exceeds that 5% level, then that's not a drama. We don't breach the in-house asset test. It means that by next year, the end of next year, so it wouldn't be 30 June 2020, it would be 30 June 2021, the trustee has to come in and put in a plan to reduce the amount of the loan back to less than 5% as at 30 June 2020, not 2021, 2020. That's over if it exceeds it. But if the balance goes up, then we haven't got a problem. So I download it, and you can see here that we've got the loan agreement. It's got Abbott-Family because I put my loan agreement. Those of you who've got your own logos, you can put your own logos in here. So I've got SMSF Angels and Grant Abbott. Again, we can't do it directly to me or a relative under Section 65. So we've got all the agreements are signed off by Abbott-Family. We've got the lender. So you can see here, when I've got that, it means that I haven't put the state. Whenever you see these things, it means I forgot to put Queensland in there. So I just have to go back and fill in that form or relaunch again. So again, we've got, this is specific. The borrower may be a related party, blah, blah, blah. So we've got the loan of the monies. The term of the agreement is to be 15 years, 3.9% fixed. We could probably actually maybe even get it lower. I don't know. You just got to be commercial around this. Lender's going to take a charge over the property, definitely, if we're trying to get this through the auditor. And then we go down the track there, and you'll see it just, we get it executed, and that's by the lender and the borrower. So again, you can see that I haven't put the state in for the borrower, and then the lender I've got there. So it's just myself as director. I'm signing under 127 of the Corps Act. Then I've got the T's and C's, which will fit in there, so that's fine. And then I go to the mortgage deed between the two, and I'd have to register that mortgage as well. If not, you could just do it over specific assets of the fund. So if I go back here, open up in the vault, we go down, where's the Abbott-Family Fund? So if you're using our system, some of you will end up with these many, particularly if you've got lots of investment strategies. You can see I've got a lot, but we're doing huge amounts of investment strategy at the moment. See how it gets time clocked in here? Hard to backdate on our system, unfortunately. So let's go down, and you'll see a couple of things that I want to do. So the first thing is the lender. I go down here, and then the borrower. You can see there. See where I haven't put the state in? So I just go and change it to Queensland. So that means it's open. The agreement details, mortgage deed, I might not want it over real property. So what I do is I bounce out of there and do over other assets. I can just simply call the business assets of the trust. That way I don't have to register the mortgage. Although if I have, yeah, so that might be a better way of doing things. And of course, then I could change that and finish, and that would then pop up and I could show you that. So that's how to do the SMSF loan agreement. Absolutely crucial now. I think this is the quickest and fastest way for families to help out each other. So make sure you look at that. If I go back to the slides, because we're getting towards the end here, a couple other things that we want to do is, so we've got loans by an SMSF to a family trust or company by older members, must be commercial. So that's a good one. That and temporary incapacity, probably my top ones. Financial hardship, well, that's again, it's a trustee issue, but remember, we've got to show the Commonwealth support, so wait for that. Compassionate grounds, medical, probably not, but definitely mortgages. So if there's a foreclosure, absolutely. That's one in our back pocket. So never let a client go broke. They can still access their superannuation. But then again, have to look at it, to be honest, that whatever's sitting in super is exempt from the trustee in bankruptcy, so it's protected. So pulling money out of super, if you know that you're going to be bankrupt for a long time, may be problematic. If you're already getting close to retirement, you can always live on your super as lump sums, and your trustee in bankruptcy can't touch a cent. So asset protection, super is number one. Investment by the SMSF. So we looked at the loan, but your superannuation fund can buy, if you've got a company, buy shares in the business. Now, that's okay. So the super fund's not running business, it's investing in the company. But again, we've got to look at 5%. The good thing about it is if we look at the markets now and we look at valuations, probably the valuation on the business is going to be extremely low. So the super fund can actually get a larger swag of that valuation in. It just means that when it goes in, you're going to have to do a the 5% test again each and every year. Alternatively, if you want to start, we've done this quite a bit with some clients and accountants and financial planners selling their practices, getting their managers who've got SMSFs or set them up an SMSF from retail and start to buy into the business to release some equity. So again, that's not a bad idea. If you've got a staff member, they can lend money or do a convertible note into your business structure. So if you want to do that stuff, just contact me, because we've done quite a few of that, Tony and I, at Abbott-Family. Now, second last thing I want to show you is, as I said, if all things turns to dust, what I've got here, a couple of things I want to show you. Okay, I've got this here, as you can see, in a draft form. So what I've got here, the coronavirus is having a devastating impact on family finances, from grandparents to working adults and children. No family has been spared, and the government handouts are short-term while the pandemic will be around for some time. Since the start of their working lives, Australians, by government mandate, sacrifice 9% of their salary to superannuation. This is for the purpose of retirement, but also can be accessed under financial hardship and compassionate grounds. The spread of the illness and the impact it's having on household finances is surely grounds for working Australians and those with superannuation who have not yet hit retirement to access superannuation to help out. Importantly, it's not full access, but amount to keep the family afloat, and should be no more than 10% of the member's account balance in their last recorded superannuation member account. Alternatively, there are mechanisms under the temporary disability sections of the super law for Australians to access their super and now as a monthly income stream where they lose their income. With more than 2.5 trillion off the change out in the superannuation accounts of Australia, there's a time of emergency, a time for the government to put in place rules allowing super fund. Petition will go out. So that's my idea on getting a petition out to members. And I've got your message, Eric. I will give you a call. So I've got here, Gavin, if super is released early under one of the hardship provisions, would it usually be taxed the members' marginal tax rates? Generally, that is the case, unfortunately, because it's just like an early release. What I would say is, if we get through this release here, if we can get in and we can take 10%, the government waives its tax liability, because a lot of our clients will be under 55, where there's a 20% tax rate on the taxable component. Now, the way we would do that, and this is what my thinking is, and we'll just see if anyone's going, what I would do, the simple way, because otherwise they're going to muck around. And you can imagine what the industry funds and retail funds, oh no, because we're actually going to have to it's going to put a run on the market and all that. And you say, well, no, you've got plenty of cash there anyway, and you can put a limit on how much it goes. But what I would do is I would do this. This. Do a transitional retirement income stream. So for that, what I would do is if I go up to a TRIS here and have a look at the standards for a transition to retirement income stream, where is that? Oh, sorry, attaining preservation age. All you have to do is actually get rid of attaining preservation age or any age during the period or during the calendar year ending 31 December 2020. So if we do that, then we can do a transition to retirement income stream, and then they can set that income stream off. It comes out of their pension, taxes their marginal rates. It's non-commutable, so it fits in really well. So that would be my argument that we should do this. As an aside, when we have a look at a transition to retirement income stream, if I bounce here, just have a look quickly. An annuity provider, actually not this, sorry, a pension provided from super fund, the rules of which meets this, so that's just a minimum pension, allows total payments, excluding payments by way of commutation, which you're not allowed to do, made in a financial year to amount to no more than 10% of the pension account balance on the 1st of July in the financial year, or if that year is the year in which the pension commences, on the commencement day. So if your clients have already got a TRIS, which is unfortunately preservation age, which when I have a look back here, MNO, if I go back here, preservation age is for people, for a person born after 1964, 60 years. So we're currently around about, in fact, what are we, 2020 at the moment? So around about, I think 58 is around about the preservation age. I'm not sure, my maths is a bit wonky at the moment, so much confusion. But effectively, what we do is if we've got clients that have met that preservation age, remember they're not yet retired, they can set up a transition retirement income stream, take 10% out, and then effectively what we do is we go to our site. I'm going to look at my product. I'm going to look at income streams just really quickly. So poke up, actually the internet's quite good, seeing there's probably so many people, at least they haven't sent the kids home, which is good. So look at SMSF income streams. I'd set up, I'm not going to do it for you, a TRIS, whereas a TRIS, transitional retirement income stream, I'd start that up, take 2 or 3 payments, get your 10% out, and then for clients who need more, do a TRIS foldback so that ceases it. It's not a commutation, just a rollback into the fund, which is allowed. So we can't commute externally, we can commute internally, so that's the case. And then I could start another TRIS, and under these guidelines here, effectively, because it's in the year in which the pension ends on the commencement day, I can take another 10%, and I could do that 2 or 3 times in a year. Now, of course, that's going to cost tax, so don't worry about any avoidance. It's actually going to end up a lot more tax for the commissioners, so should be pretty happy. A couple of things, just watch out. As I said here, obviously like your doc, so I won't look at that. I've got this NUSA conference coming up. I have got only about 10 people in there because we're looking at the new coronavirus standards. I am doing a virtual conference, so it will be going from 9 until 4 for those 2 days. It will be streamed for that with 11 CPDs. If you want to grab yourself a ticket, just go in and get the CPD. I will go and honour the event recording. So you'll get a recording plus you'll get the CPD. Just go on and order that. It'll be a great session. You'll get what a better way to get 11 CPD points, and half of it, or 5 of it, is actually professionalism and ethics and also client care. So it's those ones you're not normally having. So have a look at that. That's also, we're going to look at some amazing stuff for us. So that'll be up and running, and I'll just go to my final slide, and then I'll just do a bit of a wind up here. So again, things are tough at the moment. Look, we're going through that confusing period at the moment. Who knows where we're going to go to? We need to step up. Temporary capacity, I love. Retirement, I love. Transition to retirement income stream, I love. And that SMSF loan, that's absolutely crucial. You know, if you've got grandparents who've got a lot of money sitting in there, you know, that if they've got $3 or $4 million, get them to lend that money or give that money out to the clients. If they want to give it a loan, just do an SMSF loan agreement. It's not a bad thing. We've got, as I said, several webinars coming up. Tomorrow, I'll be releasing the Light Year Docs at 10 o'clock. So if you want to register for that, all you need to do is just go onto our site, and you'll see at the bottom there's register for the webinar. So tomorrow at 10 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Saving Time, absolutely crucial. We're releasing our two-prong product, which is an enduring power of attorney and a will together, so that they actually just fold into one. It's a great little system, and it's something that you can go out for your clients. And I'll show you our comms around that. So we've got letters for clients, or client engagement letters, and fact finds, so they'll complete those and then send them back in. You complete that process for them. And generally the costing on that, I'll show you the costings around that. But if it's just a single person with a simple will like that, with an EPOA, it's around about $995. So that's prime for you guys to go out, because honestly, with all this coronavirus stuff, everyone needs to have an EPOA. If you guys haven't got an EPOA, you must have one, not only for your finances and health, but also for your superannuation. But I'll leave that tomorrow. And then on Friday, I'm going to look at the investment strategy issue again. So I've devolved a lot around that, and I'll show you how to do that. But again, we're here to support you. I'm going to be doing a lot more webinars, particularly if you guys are ensconced at home working, so you can get your 1 hour CPD, which this one will have as well. Or if you're logged in, then we will send it out on a quarterly basis. But otherwise, it's now, we're just right on the money at the moment. So I've just gone a couple of minutes over time. But thank you for your session. 7 legal ways, in fact, there's 8 or 9 legal ways of getting your money out of super. Thanks a lot for attending this virtual webinar.